How's it going, Bitesters? Working to bring you specifications you can relate to so you can have an educated decision on your purchases. This is one from Jon Graham. This is the Razelcliffe. So this is kind of an interesting one because you had the original Razel that came out from CRKT. Of course, he has the custom versions where everything kind of originated from. So that's kind of where you're going to have this. So Razelcliffe on the top side and Razel on the bottom side. So the other one has the actual pocket clip that he has on his knives. So it's kind of a nice thing where it actually is ambidextrous. You can put it to either pocket. It's on the side. So if you haven't seen that pocket clip before, that's how it rides in your pocket. And this is how big the knife is. So that's the regular Razel, and this is the Razelcliffe. So it's very much different in sizing for that. But the new one fits into a fifth pocket. So that's where you're going to have the knife here. So that is basically a fifth pocket knife. So this is also based off a custom. So custom runs for about $450 if you can get it. But this is the production version from Columbia River Knife and Tool. So thank you to them for providing it to the pass around group. Very much appreciated for that. So this one comes in, as far as weight goes, about 3.3 ounces. So as far as this channel, so what do we do for weight? So this is 16 quarters and 1 penny and a piece of hair. But that's going to be the weight for that. So 3.3 ounces. If you have quarters and pennies around, even though we're having a shortage on coins, and I think they said you can get, for every $100 of coin you turn in, you can get $5 extra, since there's I guess a shortage on quarters now, or coins in general. So that's going to be what it is, 16 quarters, 1 penny. So if you get that in your hand, you can actually feel how much this weighs. So I know a lot of times you get different ounces thrown at you, and then you kind of figure what it is, but it's kind of nice to get that actual weight in your hand. So this one runs for about $29.95 when it comes in stock. MSRP is about $44.99 for this one here. Lining pull gauge is something I use to get the pull on flipper tabs, thumb studs, everything else. So this is where I find 2 to 3 pounds of pull is actually a pretty decent amount that I like for those types of devices and deployments. So we'll see what this one comes out to be. So just about 2 pounds, 2.3 ounces. So just over that mark for it. So it depends on also how you're going to be flipping it, because sometimes you're going to be doing basically a push button method for it, and then or you're going to do light switch. What's the difference between a push button and a light switch? Push button, you're actually going to be pushing inwards. So if you have the flipper tab in line with the pivot or above the pivot, you cannot push button it. So it's going to have to be below, at least slightly, to be able to add force this way and push all the way through. Then you're going to have light switches down. So that's going to be the two methods there. You have a pinch and roll that you can do for it. Also can do a traditional, so 2 hand open. And it's a very small knife, so it's not going to scare folks most times, but some people get scared over everything. So you might not be able to get away from that. But this one is going to be a 2.05 inch blade, so very short. So basically from the tip all the way to this first protruding section. So that's going to be this one here. So all the way to this tip here for the actual blade length, 2.05 inches. It is flat on both bellies, so this one here as well as the front for the Razelcliffe, and that is going to be just pretty decent for it. I believe there's going to be an 8CR13 MOV, but for some reason it seems like their newer knives, they're not printing it on it anymore. So I couldn't find any denotion for what type of steel this blade's using, but if it is using 8CR13, corrosion resistant side for this knife is going to be about 10 percentile compared to other steels, and edge retention is going to be about 4 percentile. So something that you can easily resharpen. It should be able to make through your regular day of work if you're cutting down little boxes and everything else, but it's not going to be something that's going to be able to last for a month at a time or anything like that. Of course, depends on what your use is for those things. The actual handle length for it is going to be 3.3 inches. So that's going to be from this tip, again, to the end of the knife. So this little frag pattern is a pretty good one. So as you're taking it out of your pocket, that's where your thumb's making contact on. So it actually works really well in taking it out of your pocket. So I actually found that to be very useful. It's not rigid, it's very rounded, very smooth, but it does add that texture to it so that just makes it a very easy deployment method for it to actually take it out of your pocket. It is only one hand, right hand side, so that's going to be right hand tip up for the pocket clip for it. So you're not going to be having this in your left hand pocket because you would rather not, at least I would rather not cut myself. So this one you also have a point up here, you cut yourself, and on that side you can cut yourself. So if this does pop open a little bit, even a little like that, you're going to be meeting yourself with a sharp edge, which isn't great. Behind this thickness is going to be now about 7 sheets of paper and 9 sheets of paper. So basically this belly here is about 7 sheets. That's about 26 thousandths. Tip of the blade is going to be about 9 sheets of paper, and then that's going to be about 34 thousandths. And the degree of ramp, that's kind of something that I talk about on the channel. So this is where when you actually disengage the lock and then to when that detent ball is actually onto the blade, I find that 20 degrees is really good, 30 degrees is okay, 40 degrees and above is kind of bad and something I just don't like it for that. So this one comes at 22 degrees as far as actually being onto the blade itself. Blade stock thickness is 2.95 millimeters, and it actually is interesting where even from this basically thickest point, it actually does start to taper off already. So that's where the thickness point is rather high up. So that's kind of an interesting thing about the actual blade shape for it. And then taking it out of your pocket, this is actually under 1 pound of actual retention, so it's not very much. The clip is long enough where it's not going to be too much of a worry for that, but that's where it's like 14 ounces where I actually was able to pull this out of the pocket. So that's I'd like to see that a little bit higher, just so you don't have that chance of losing it. But also when I was using the knife, I did find that it hung up a little bit on this section here. So if you can see there, the pocket clip isn't recessed. So the screws are very recessed, which is appreciated, because if it was not, it would be just absolutely horrible. But it does catch up on this little lip of that pocket clip. So I did find that I have to readjust it. Sometimes I didn't actually get all the way into the pocket. It would actually just catch up on that little spot there. So mindful if you're actually going to be picking out that you might have to make that adjustment. If you're wearing thinner pants, so it's not, I was just using with jeans, then you might not have any issue at all with that whatsoever. So that is some of the things with it. Mostly, it's very usable for the blade shape. So I found, so I'm using more so cardboard, tape, everything else. So that's where taking out of your pocket and actually making those cuts with this blade tip is very good. I didn't find that I used the actual the front part of the knife, which is kind of his signature style for it. I know you can use that for more scraping and everything else. I didn't really come across that to be able to make use of it. I tried to even use that to make some cuts, which doesn't really work too well for it because it's kind of doesn't really have a lot of blade there, but it is an option for that as far as if you want to actually do that for the knife. Just be very careful not to cup the knife. So as you're opening it up, so you do have, since you do have that sharpened area, you do not want to cup the knife because then you're going to actually be cutting your hand with whatever force you put onto that flipper tab. So if you're actually going to cup the knife and then deploy it, that's not going to be the way to do it. So just be careful with that. It's just a little bit different with this type of knife, is just having just another thing that could get in the way, could cause an issue, but I didn't run across it as far as just regular use. But that's kind of where I had for it. That's where I'm going to stick with it for this one. In comparison, we'll look at some other sizes for other things. So this one would be kind of close to another one from CRKT that's a popular one, which is going to be the squid. So that's going to be how that is for sizing. And then even the Kershaw, this one's going to be the copper matrix. Then you have the P large. Oh, sorry, I had my finger on that lock bar. So the P large, or the P large. And then you're going to have just the regular standards for what a lot of people have, like a Rat 2. Or you also have Benchmade Bug Out. So that's going to be the sizing that you have for that one. So this is where I would recommend, as far as a buy, borrow, or void, that's where I would kind of almost have it into a bisection. The pricing is not bad for it. It's a really cool design. I would like to have a bigger version of this. So if they ever bring out a full size, so even bring this back as far as the regular Razel, and then, or even this one in a larger size. It doesn't have to be this big. Definitely not that thick. Don't make it that thick. But overall size, I guess it's pretty good. Oh, actually, I didn't measure that either. So let's measure also for the thickness of it. So let's turn that back to inches. So fairly thin. So that's a 0.36 inches. So very thin for that. And it is a frame lock, as you saw there. But so I'll kind of put in the middle between the buy and borrow. It's kind of there. There might be other things ahead of it, but it's not a bad knife. It would do its job very well. So if you want to pick it up, do that. But that's about all I have to say about that one today.